Hello everyone. So this is actually in when I filmed this, it's in July. So in some cases, it's kind of in the beginning of the summer. So I know a lot of people are scheduling out of office. Because of the title, you can clearly see, oh, how did you prepare for out of office? I thought it just makes sense to not do it in the home office. I'm gonna just literally handheld under a blanket here, and I have my cats just literally staring at me like, why is mom talking to a camera here? But I'm just gonna talk here. So the first thing I want to talk about is like specifically what I do to prepare for out of office and also why it's important, because I know there's a lot of people out there that literally just don't do any preparations. Their focus is more on, let me plan my trip and I just go because there's literally nothing I need to do. Like it's my right to go on vacation or go take time off, right? But if you want to make sure you have a positive experience with your coworkers and your colleagues and your manager and your clients, then maybe you should listen up. So, because I have seen people take out of office a little bit too seriously, and I literally see some people that it's something that you just have to kind of figure out yourself on what the culture is at your company. But no matter what, there are ways to just make things a little bit easier for everyone around you, because while you're away, if you're in a role where people can cover you, that person or that team that is covering you, make it easy as possible for them. So I'm going to start with number one, which is probably the easiest one. I just kind of hinted it, is coverage plan. So whenever you're thinking about out of office, you have to think about coverage plan. And when I say coverage plan, it's like basically emergencies that pop up if you're needed, or it's on client work. So if it's on client work, who's going to help with your clients? Are there any open items that are having issues, or are there open projects that you need attention on, or is there just literally nothing and you're just more of there for as an emergency? So there's many different ways. So in my case, a lot of times it's really depending on the client or depending on the situation. If there isn't a pending emergency, then I usually kind of give that to one person, and then I split up the rest of my work to someone else. So that way their mental and physical and energy that they're using on it and their effort and stress is kind of sprinkled through. Let's say for example, I have 10 clients and one of them is problematic. I would give one person that one client, and then one person those 9 others who's kind of on this reactive mode, but the other person is going to be on proactive. But I'm not going to give that person the entire portfolio of clients, because that's just not fair. What if that happens and they still have to do their own work? Most people don't realize hey, can you just do this? And they forget that they also have work that they need to do as well, and even other priorities outside of work. It could be personal life as well. So the first thing is really coverage plan. You're gonna have to see, based off of your company's culture, your team's culture, even the movement on your accounts or the movement on your projects, internal or external, and how many of them are actually very crucial that you get addressed. And personally for me, I do adjust it based off of how long it's actually going to be. So for example, if I'm only away for 3 days, then it's really more reactive. But if I'm away for 3 months, like I did for my honeymoon, then there are going to be actual projects that are out there that my coverage would need to have to cover as well. So because 3 weeks is a long time, and I did always tell them ahead of time. I would say 2 months ago and say hey, by the way, and this is for only those that have pending problems or pending projects. I would say 2 months before, they're hey, by the way, I'll be away for 3 weeks, and so they can mentally and emotionally prepare for themselves. They're okay, maybe I should not take time off around that time. So I would just tell them and say hey, in 2 months I'm going to be away for my honeymoon. I won't have access to my emails. I won't have access to my phone. I did have access to my phone and I did have access to my emails, but I was just saying that as baseline. I did not want to say hey, if there's an emergency, you could just email me with urgent on it. In that case, I would have it go to my coverage. So with 3 weeks, I had essentially what I did was I broke up my needy clients to one person, and then I had my not so needy clients that are kind of reactive, nothing really happens unless someone reaches out, to another person. And I work with sales on all of my accounts. So what I essentially said was in my out of office email, I have a little link of my coverage plan, and it's only accessible to internal. So clients have no access. I just have at the very top in my out of office email, here's all these paths you can file a ticket, or make an inquiry on. But for the sales team, if it's truly that important and the client reaches out to sales team, or the sales team is already on there and they're escalating, they can click on that document and they can literally say like, okay, for this account, then it goes to this person. And in that same document, that's actually what I have for like all the client information. In this case, like the people on the team internally and externally, what are the projects that are open, what are the issues that are going on, the level of effort, the times that they have meetings on. I made it where for a lot of these meetings that they don't attend unless sales team thinks that like they should attend, and that there's like agenda item on it for them. But that's like essentially what I did, is like I had this huge coverage plan, and in the end I actually don't use that as just my coverage plan. I actually use it for myself too. So when I get like new accounts or when I remove accounts, I work on that document as if it's like my personal book of business. It's just easier that way, to be honest, than to work with two separate documents. So with that, I actually used that document to maintain, okay, what are the open items that are out there? Who are the people on the team? So that way when I need a really quick glance on what's going on, I already have that in one document and I don't have to look at two documents or update two documents. That's how I had it done for a bigger trip. But for the most part, when it's like a little bit more reactive, I always still have two people because I'm on both hotels and shopping. And when it comes to hotels, there's only one person on the team that does hotels, so like he is the backup no matter what. And then for shopping, that's where I'm thinking of one person. But depending on how needy the clients are and how short the time period is, it's just one person. But if it's a longer period of time, then I split it up, and maybe if I have some needy clients, then I split it up as well. So that's number one, coverage plan. Number two, knowledge transfer. So this is actually like, I think a lot of the terms knowledge transfer is more in consulting, because when I use this elsewhere, they're like, what is KT session? I'm like, oh. A knowledge transfer is like for those needy clients. And this, by the way, a lot of what I'm saying is very client focused, because for me, when it came to like a 3-week vacation, I did need to have that to give context to people that are working on that more active projects or need that client context. So someone out there has that client context that is not all stored in here, because that document is great and all, but at the end of the day, I still needed to do this for the more needy clients that need to have more nuance than just like a little blurb. But I gave that KT session to one of the people that are covering for me for those accounts, and it's very helpful because they can ask you any questions and they'll have an idea of like what is going on with that account and what could pop up, versus like what's just on there. And sometimes it's like just not as comprehensive. For the others though, I like had one KT session for every other account, and I just basically walk through them very quickly. So like, this is a call out, this is like, oh, they keep on getting these issues, and these are the types of issues, and how would we resolve them, kind of thing. And that's literally it. I just basically went over the document, and I did not really do anything more than that. But for the other person that covered my two big accounts, my most needy accounts, I actually went like in depth with them, as if I was leaving the company, like that kind of in depth, just in case. So yeah, so that's what I did. So I highly recommend KT sessions, especially if you're in like consulting and you're just on that one account and someone's there. And this is like very important too. Like, let's say you're on out of office. It also could mean like maternity leave or paternity leave. This is like a long period of time. You should have a KT session to really get the client context. And when we are talking about KT sessions, this is what I recommend you talk about. How does the client like to communicate? Are they emails? Are they calls? Are they actually like pinging you on Teams or Google Chat or something like that? How hands-on are they? Like, are they the ones that are going to reach out to you for everything? How problematic are they? Do they reach out to support, or are you support, or they assume that you do everything and you're kind of like stuck there because you are the point of person? And the other things would be like, who are the important people to work with? So in this case, that's very crucial to know, like, what's your relationship with this other person that you work with? What are they working on that you need to know about as well? So there's a lot more context to that. And when I have KT sessions, we also talk about upcoming deliverables too. So for example, like, let's say you have a presentation that comes up in a week and this person that's covering you is supposed to cover you and do this as well. So you're going to talk them through this presentation, and you're not just going to leave them dry by just saying like, this is the deck I'm going to do, you're presenting it. Sometimes you can do that. And I have actually seen someone on our team do that before, where they were on paternity leave and then they came back right in time, and the person that was covering for him made the deck, and then he was the one who was like presenting the deck to the client. So KT sessions are very important for that, and just to actually have everything resolved too. So if they had any questions, or they just have concerns, or they just wanted to make sure, it's kind of like a nice thing to do, to check off the box and say like, okay, that client is fine. And even better if you could even possibly get it recorded. But to be honest, I think like if you did a good KT session, you won't really need that, especially if you have a manager that would be up to date with that too. So in this case, like if it's not the manager, it could be your project manager, your delivery lead, your engagement manager. You just work with whoever that is for client work specifically, and they'll help you provide the context as well. So those two are really important in my opinion, for especially if you're going for a long period of time. But if you're just doing short term, I don't think you need a KT session unless you're working on an active project and there's like actual work that you have to do on a more active and involved way. But my third one is really on, okay, so once you're out of office, what do you do? Okay, what are the things that you need to do? Well, for me, I always do an out of office email. So that way, if they were to respond and say like, hey, I want you to just take a look at this thing, and then they're like, why is there no response? So I do an out of office email to say like, sorry, I'm out of office. And it's so interesting because there's so many different ways people do out of office emails too. Sometimes people have like a little checklist and they say, I'm sick, I'm on leave, on vacation, and then they have a separate section here of like, oh, I have limited access to emails, I have no access to emails, I have a slow delay, like that kind of thing. So I thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, so in general, what I would say is like, work on your out of office email template, and depending on the clients, depending on the work, like you might want to modify it. My out of office email is really more on the actual like, okay, I'm going to be out of office for these dates. I will not have access to emails, or I will have access to emails, or I will have limited access to emails. In my case, I said no access to emails, but there are times when I'm away on a conference and I said I have limited access to emails, please expect a delay. And I had like my work phone and my work laptop, I'm just at a conference, you know? So for those, I actually was working with like someone on the side to just like make sure that I have someone who can hop on a call, but I'm just there for anything like that. And sometimes even add like, if it's truly urgent, please put urgent in the subject. I like got that once. But that's what I have in my out of office email. And by the way, I'm not going to show you what I do because that is kind of not confidential. That is a little bit confidential, so I don't want to show you, but I'm just giving you a general structure. I'll put the structure next to me over here so you have an idea of like what the structure is. But the first thing I do is like, I'll be out of office on these dates particularly. Then I give you a sense of how out of office am I truly going to be? Am I like going to have limited access to emails? Am I not having access to emails? Am I not going to respond at all? Am I going to respond but there's a delay? Like those kind of things. Then below that, I have here's all the paths you can take. So at Google, I have these like support links that I have, and I even put down like what like support links are for what. At Accenture, what I did was like, speak to your project manager, and then I listed the name, or speak to your delivery leads, listed the name, or speak to financial leads, listed the name. Because most times that are people responding, they're all either Accenture employees or they're people in the client. So at the end of the day, it wasn't confidential to have that information on there. So in this case, I've actually like if I was like working with my financial lead, then I've already like kept them up to speed and everything. So that's what I have done on my emails particularly. And sometimes like what I mentioned before, my coverage doc, I put at the very bottom is say like, please see my coverage doc here, and it's only accessible to internal. External people are getting this email, but that link specifically is only accessible for internal, for Googlers. So that's where the people that work internally, if they get something and they didn't realize that I'm out of office, and in which case they should, then they have that doc. The fourth thing I do, it's like usually the final thing, is like the week that I'm going out of office, or if it's like a Monday or Tuesday, then I like send the email out on a Thursday or Friday. And at this point, they already know about this, but this is just a matter of actually making it a formality. I send an email to everyone that I work with and say like, this person will be covering me. This is the capacity that I expect them to be working on, and then here's my coverage doc. And then vice versa, I would do it for, like, let's say the two groups that I was talking about before. One person was covering more my like passive accounts, and then I have one person covering my active accounts. I sent emails to all of them actually and said, like, here, this is the coverage doc, because I had it all in there. But if you don't have a coverage doc, you could say for this project or this account or this client, this person's working with this, or this person's working with this, and this is internal only. I work with internal only. So in most consulting cases, I don't think I need that, because most times the project manager, delivery lead, and engagement manager or your manager already knows who's going to cover for you. So you don't need that. But for me, I like to cover my bases, and I send that email out. This is, again, by the way, for the longer emails, the longer sessions. In this case, like, I just have my out of office that has the coverage doc, and it makes things so much easier than sending an email out, because I have to literally like message all of them and then put them in BCC, and then I have CC'd as myself, and then even my manager as well. Sometimes I say, like, if you need coverage beyond what I have, and sometimes I never had this issue, but like if you don't have coverage, then I would say, like, okay, please reach out to my manager. But I never had that issue, to be honest. So because I always found coverage. So those are the 4 things. Number 1 is really on making sure you have a coverage doc. Number 2, you make sure you do those KT sessions for the more involved accounts and more clients. And depending on how long they are, I would always recommend doing this if they're like pretty long and involved. Number 3 is to make sure that you send an out of office automatic response email. So this has all the information that everyone would need. And number 4, I want you to make sure that like everyone internally also knows like what their paths are available and where they can even find this information. So I think this is very helpful in general for people that, you know, in the summertime, people are going out of office, or they're going on vacation, or they got weddings to go to. So this is just what I would do personally, and I just thought it was fitting to do that. All right, let me know in the comments down below what you do, and I'm really curious to see what you guys do, because honestly, I think this is pretty comprehensive. I've done this in both companies, and now I'm kind of curious like what other people do. But yeah, maybe your job is so easy, like maybe you work retail and you're just like, bye. But for me, when it comes to corporate, especially client-facing work, you do need to do a lot more work to make sure everyone is set up for success. You can't just leave unless it's like, I don't know, you got COVID and now you can't, or maybe you have no one that can cover you. But at the very least, let your manager know, and your manager can help find coverage if needed. All right, see you guys next time. Bye.